everybody, and welcome to Manga Pod. We are a weekly podcast in which we all get together after we've read all or part of a manga, and then we discuss it with friendship, love, and lots of spoilers. This week, we are discussing Vinland Saga, chapters 29 through 54, aka Dodger's favorite manga of all time.
My favorite manga ever.
I'm Aaron of Happily Aaron, your host, and with me are two of my three lovely co-hosts. Introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Dodger, and Vinland Saga is my favorite manga. I'm really excited that we got to this part. Yay!
Hi, I'm Lou from Lou Talks Anime, and Vinland Saga is top 5 for me. Possibly top 3.
It's top 5 for me. So, yeah. Oh, it's so good. We are missing Yoku. If you haven't noticed, we are missing our lovely Yokorama, but we replaced him with he's basically in this manga. So we replaced him with himself. So you don't even really know that he's not here. That's him. That's basically him. Alright, if you've never joined us for a manga pod before, what we like to do is give you a short spoiler-free description of the manga that we read, aka a summary. Then we'll give you our spoiler-free recommendations, whether we believe you should spend time going to read this manga or not, and why. That way, if you do not want to be spoiled for this manga when we get to spoiler section, you can take your leave after we do the countdown, go read the manga, and then come back and watch the VOD of this on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/happily. We already discussed Vinland Saga back in episode 51, so it was a long time ago. It was like 75 episodes ago. I hope that math I think is really close. I think that math might have been exact. What is 126 minus 51? Anybody want to give me that answer? Because I might have 75. It's not 75.
I'm not gonna even try.
Oh, you're not gonna get. I thought you were just like straight up.
You're right, Aaron.
No, Aaron, you're wrong.
You're right.
Oh no.
All right, awesome,
you got it.
Sweet, yeah. So it's been a while since we've discussed it. We've tried to discuss it a few times, and like always had to keep moving it back. But finally, we are here and we have reached it. So this is a manga that you do not want to be spoiled on. Just up front, really quick. Let's do our spoiler-free description. Let me go ahead and pull it up really quick to read. Thorfinn is son to one of the Vikings' greatest warriors, but when his father... Is this a spoilery summary, do you think? It discusses people who died. Nah, probably not, right? Listen, it's about Vikings and revenge.
It's about Vikings.
And it's great.
And lots of violence.
Yeah, it's about a little boy who is... I don't even know. I don't even know how to try and
a little boy who... Yeah, you're right.
The little boy who gets
suffered
thrown into a world of revenge and war and political intrigue.
Yep.
All
right, good. Yes. So there you go. That's our summary. I didn't want to read it and potentially spoil anybody. So let's see. Spoiler-free recommendations. Anybody want to go first?
It's my favorite manga ever. It's real good. And you should all read it. So there it is.
Good. It's, like I said, top 5 for me. It's amazingly paced. It's got really great characters. It's got awesome violence. If you enjoy Berserk, then you would enjoy this one. It doesn't have the fantasy elements that Berserk has, but in terms of tone and gore and pacing, it's very, very similar, while also being very distinct on its own. So I think it is one, especially if you like just historical fiction, it's one you should check out.
I'm going to reiterate these points that have been made, and also emphasize what I said earlier. Top 5, possibly top 3 for me, is real good in terms of its visuals, its narrative, its characters. Everything is extremely well put together. Go read this. It is must read.
Oh, it's so good. So, there you have it. You do not want to be spoiled on this manga because there are numerous plot points that are very worth not being spoiled on. And everybody in the chat, please do not post any spoilers for anything past chapter 54, aka we read until the end of the prologue.
I will ban you so fast. Look,
Yes.
I won't ban you, but I will time you out so fast because I know what happens later. So don't even try to get stuff by me. You'll get outed.
Please do not post anything past the prologue. That's all we're saying. Just don't do that, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into spoiler section. Countdown, por favor.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
God is God.
Mm.
Asgard is God. Everybody's God. There's so many gods.
There's so many potential gods
There's so many
here.
potential
There are a
gods.
lot of potential gods in
Like,
Vinland
I
Saga.
kind of want to say Askeladd.
Askeladd. Askeladd's very
Definitely a
God.
potential- is very god, but also Thorkel.
I was gonna say
Thorkel
Thorkel's
is
very God.
base. Thorkel is very much a god figure.
Thor's is pretty God.
Yeah, that too.
He's literally watching down from wherever he is. Maybe up. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, Lou, have you read this manga before, Manga Pod? You own it. I know that.
I own the 7 hard the 7 hardcovers that have been released so far, and I've only read what we've read for Manga Pod.
Okay. I have read I've read like I think 20 chapters past what we read for Manga Pod, because when I was reading it, I was really into Kuroko no Basket, and then Dodger like got super into Kuroko, and then was like, what other manga exists, and then looked like up Vinland Saga or something like that.
I
remember.
had read Vinland Saga in college.
Oh, okay.
So I read it a while back, and then I stepped away from it because the mangaka got really sick and he took a really long hiatus. So I was like, oh man, like maybe it'll never really come back. Like,
Yeah.
But then, yeah, after you had shown me Kuroko, I was like, man, I wonder if Vinland Saga ever came back, and it did. So excited.
I remember you told me to go and read it, and I did, and I got super into it, but I think there was only 70 some chapters out when I read it.
Yeah.
And that was in 2012, and so it was a long time ago when I first read it, but it like made such an impact in my brain when I was reading it, and I could not stop once I started.
So good.
Oh, it's so good. So yeah, like expectations before like going into it, trying to remember the first time I read it. I remember you told me that it was Vikings, and that instantly sold me because I love his history, and Vikings are so fascinating. And so immediately this manga like really starts off with a bang, and like what we read in this section really continued and escalated, and I remember it just blowing my mind. Chapter 54 was just so good. But Lou, what were your expectations before you, like the first time you were reading it?
All right, going back to before I got into Vinland Saga, I remember hearing Dodger talk about it a lot and praising it very much so, like just going ham on her praise for it. And I decided to blind buy the books based solely on her recommendation. And my expectations were that, because I value Dodger's opinions and her taste,
Aw, thank you.
I expected it to be a fun and interesting read with some violence because it's about Vikings. I did not expect this level of violence, and I'm very happy that it over-delivered because it just does it so well. Like everything, it's very calculated with how it depicts its violence.
Yeah. Thorkel punched a horse. Like, punched through
Straight
a horse.
up. Horses in this manga, man.
These poor horses, dude.
So many
One got, like, an
horses.
axe right to the face. I was like, no.
The one where a bunch of arrows got shot into the horse, and the horse, like, the way that mangaka drew it, the horse's eye is looking, like, straight at you, just crying. It's just like...
It's like, I'm sorry. I would have stopped it if I was there.
It hurt. I was like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that is like probably one of my favorite parts of this manga is the gore. And I think something that really like sets it apart from a lot of gore is like, I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but a lot of times with gore, it's like shaded a very certain way, where there's like a lot of black and dark. With this, it felt much. What's the right word? I'm trying to figure out how to say it. It didn't feel as shaded. That doesn't make any sense. I know what it is in my brain, but
It manages to be like super violent and bloody, but very clean
There
at
you
the
go.
same time.
There's what it is. Yeah.
Like the art is just very easy to read, very clean. Even there are so many pages where it's literally just a page of like a battlefield, and there's just bodies everywhere, and like you would think that certain aspects of that would get messy, and it doesn't. Like everything is so intricately drawn.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think also it doesn't feel, there's obviously moments where somebody's sword slices straight through somebody. You're like, I don't think that's how that would happen. But for the most part, it doesn't feel too gratuitous, if that makes sense. Like it feels like, oh, that's what somebody would look like if their arm was just laying in the snow. Or if a bird ripped your ear off, like that's what it would look like. It didn't feel excessive for the sake of evoking, like, just for the sake of being excessive. That's not what it felt like. It felt like, hey, this is what Vikings were. They were really violent people, and we get to draw that. So here you go.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah. Have some violence. Yeah.
I think one of the best part is the teeth. How whenever somebody like got punched in the face or sliced open, like the detail of the teeth going everywhere and just what that looked like. There was a lot of detail in every panel.
Now, for me, like my favorite detail in the art were the eyes that would fly out of the skull. Those were the best.
Oh, man. Yeah.
The eyes. Dude, when Thorfinn like pulled out
Thorkel?
Thorkel's eye. I love Thorkel's. I mean, we'll get into characters. We'll keep talking about gore, but yeah, the eye gore was really awesome.
Yeah. I just loved the moments when you would go to the next page and be like, oh, like the full pager. I think it was at the beginning of a chapter of Bjorn when he was in his full berserker rage and was just holding a dude's head by the mouth. Like just had his hand in the dude's mouth and was just holding his head. And I was like, oh, like for some reason that image was so grotesque in like the perfect way of just like, he's in a berserker rage. Like he doesn't give a fuck right now, you know?
Yeah.
And just like, I loved elements like that. I thought they were so good.
Yeah, it did a lot of, so many of the transitions, like or chapter openings or scene changes all started with some kind of gore or some kind of like body part that is no longer attached. But a lot of times you're like, oh, that body part's still attached. Oh, no, it's not. Oh no, that is a decapitated head.
Yeah, when the little scrap was going on between Thorfinn and Thorkel, and they were going through the bodies
and like shooting arrows, like people's heads with the arrow, like they would throw it up and then people shoot the arrow and be like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, the moment that I'm thinking of is when he was like, hey, this is a really good glove. Oh man, I wonder where the other arm is. Like it turned out that it was just a hand with a glove on it, and he was like, oh man, I gotta find the other one now.
Like it's gotta be around here somewhere.
Yeah.
I love that the focus of that scene, they were like, Thorkel went, okay, I'm dealing with Thorfinn, you guys can kill all of Askeladd's men, like whatever. But they didn't do anything that was like, okay, we're gonna show Thorkel fighting, and then we'll cut to this fight over here, and then back. It was literally Thorkel and Thorfinn are fighting, and then all of Thorkel's men have destroyed Askeladd's men. Like it was no competition. So I like that they didn't even bother with it, because that just reemphasized how weak they were compared to Thorkel's men.
Yeah, it's all about drawing attention to the main part of your story and not deviating with characters that are just going to be slaughtered anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, we already touched on the fight, or we started to get into the fight of Thorkel versus Thorfinn. I really like how it was choreographed in terms of like showing how much of a monster Thorkel really is, especially with all the build-up they did in Thorfinn's character with how much of a badass he is. So it's just showing that difference in power, I think, really was conveyed really well in the manga.
I feel like more than anybody else, Thorkel really embodies this idea of like, I'm not a bad guy, I just love war.
Yeah.
Like just being in so many aspects the nicest guy in this manga, but at the same time, he feels like he is a warrior. And if he's not fighting, he feels empty. Like there's something missing, you know? And I think that's what makes his character so interesting. And I love, like you were saying, I love the juxtaposition of him and Thorfinn, because Thorfinn is so like buried in this revenge, right? He like, it's all he thinks about, it's all he wants. And then there's Thorkel, who's just kind of like, I just want to fight, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked that we got to see that there's a connection between them as well, like family-wise.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Thorfinn's quest for revenge. Those last few chapters, though.
Dude, I was so
Brutal.
excited.
So brutal.
Not okay. First time I read it, I had no idea that was gonna happen. Like, obviously, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a long story about Thorfinn and Askeladd fighting alongside each other and hating each other and constantly fighting, la da da." And then the story, like, I don't know, something will happen. There was nothing in my brain that prepared me for Askeladd dying. Nothing at all was I, like, ever even hinted at or anything. And the way it happened was, like, he wasn't planning on it either. Like, nobody was planning on it. It was a very jump decision by everything around, like, that whole scene. It wasn't like they went in thinking, okay, Askeladd is going to sacrifice himself, and then that is how Canute is going to become king. That was not their plan. And so I think we really, because of how that was written, the readers got to feel the same amount of shock that it, like, if we were in the actual room with it happening, like that same amount of shock going on. It was just like, hold on, that's not how this is supposed to work. That's not what's supposed to happen.
And I loved that too, because you know that that's exactly how Thorfinn felt. You know, of
exactly.
Just an immediate reaction of like, this is not how this is supposed to happen. Like, I'm supposed to kill you. Like, this wasn't the plan. And I loved that so quickly everything got turned upside down for every character. Every single character was like, oh, I guess we're just gonna roll with this situation then, right? And also the fact that Canute was the one who killed him. I think just like, it was such a perfect tableau of just this whole plan managing to come together in the end, but it was nothing like what they wanted it to be, you know?
What they had expected it to be. And the whole parallel of Canute killing Askeladd compared to Thorfinn killing him, like, it's been reestablished numerous times throughout, like, when they were introduced, that they were the same age, but they're completely different personalities. They've come from completely different walks of life and all of this. And so the fact that Thorfinn had to watch Canute kill the person he wanted to kill is so interesting. Like, just so good. Like, like, anyone else, there could have been other people that killed Askeladd during that, but it wasn't. They had Canute. Canute was the one that killed him.
Like, yeah, especially because throughout the story so far, it's been very obvious that Thorfinn and Canute look down on each other for totally different reasons, you know? And so, yeah, for Canute to, like, steal that from him is just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
No, and Thorfinn trying to attack Canute after the fact. Just kind of with, like, the emptiness in his eyes. Like, kind of builds upon how much Canute taking that kill away from him was, how much of a blow it was to Thorfinn.
Yeah, because I remember pretty vividly the first time that I read that part, and it was the same for me, where I thought, okay, this is gonna go on for a while, and eventually when Askeladd does die, I'm expecting their relationship to have developed to kind of this weird father-son stage, right? Where it feels a bit more, it feels more sad, but I don't know, there's something kind of fantastic about it ending this way, where it just feels so hollow. And in the end, Askeladd is just like, you're such a stupid kid. Like, you've wasted so much of your time trying to kill me instead of becoming, like, a man that your dad would be proud of. I just loved it. That in the end, it was so hollow for Thorfinn. He got nothing out of it.
It's sad in a completely different way than we're used
Yeah.
to seeing for a major character death. Like so many characters, I'm like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I'm not quite sure if it fits. But there's a set of characters in Fate Zero, that it's not exactly perfect, but the way it ends, you feel very, very upset about a character's ending. And so, but the way that you feel for that is completely different than the way you feel for Askeladd dying here, because like they could have built it up and had it be like you were saying, like, oh no, I'm so sad that he died because Thorfinn like is family and all of this, but they chose not to do that, which could have been, which is what we're totally used to, is having that kind of feeling evoked when a character dies, but instead we got the hollow feeling and the sadness from knowing that Thorfinn is never going to achieve what his entire life up to this point, for the most part, has been going towards.
And oh my god, when he finally reunited with Leaf too.
Yeah.
And Leaf was just like, I don't even recognize you.
Yeah.
Like, you've turned into a monster. And I thought that was so sad. It's just like, this whole revenge story has contorted him from like this really happy kid into just like a shell of a person.
He's such like, yeah, he's at like such a low point where it's one of those characters that you pity so much because of how much like he's gone through and everything, but where his life is taking him. And there's a lot of times where like, no, I like, if you do this, like, you'll be redeemable or something like that. But he's just fallen so far, and his life has been so focused on this, even though we as readers are like, well, that's obviously like gonna be like a very shallow thing for life. Like, you can't build your entire life on revenge for one person. But for him, it's like literally that is his life. And so it's just very sad to see him not even show emotion about his sister and his mother. Like, it's not that he's suppressing that and trying to be a cool dude, it's that he literally just he can't feel that anymore because his life has been so focused on killing Askeladd. At least that's how I kind of like took it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about Canute and like the change that we saw in him?
All right. The change was badass. I still don't believe he's a guy.
Oh my god.
Even every other character, like Thorkel, he's like, I still don't believe you're a guy. Whip out your cock or whatever.
I loved that that response came because Canute was just like, I don't really care who wins this fight. Like, I don't care to watch that fight. And Thorkel's like, what man doesn't want to watch a fight? Who are you? Like, I just loved that. Yeah, and the whole scene with the girl on the boat who got shot in his place, and they like opened the curtain, and they were like, oh, "The prince, he was a girl, we knew it."
And he's just like, "Fuck you guys." He's like, "No." It's like, you didn't even question. And he comes out, and he's just like, "Why? Why did they have to use a girl? Why did it have to be a girl?" And Askeladd's just, listen, we literally could not find a man as pretty. There was no one pretty. But yeah, no, his change was super badass. Like, really, really cool. And I like that he had like the revelation by talking to the priest. And after, what was Ragnar? After he died, it was, I mean, it was pretty sudden considering it was like in the same day. But the build up for it didn't feel unbelievable to me, I guess. Like, it didn't feel super, like, it was sudden, but it didn't feel sudden at the same time, if that makes sense.
I think when I read that part, I read it as kind of an interesting coping mechanism.
Yes.
Right? Like, the one person in his life that he felt loved him is dead. And then he has this whole conversation with the priest where he reaches this kind of strange realization of, like, everyone is selfish, you know? Like, the only way that I can be a good person is if I try to create a utopia for people to live in. And in order to do that, I have to be king. Like, I have to just sack up and be king, right? And I think that, yeah, it really is super sudden. He goes from, like, this really quiet character the first time we see him to just being like, all right, well, I've been watching people be princes and kings my whole life, so I know how to do this, so I'm just gonna do it. And I liked it too. I liked that, you know, that he became this really, I don't know.
He's very
This-
authoritative.
He's also somebody who has nothing to lose anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, my dad wants me dead.
Yeah.
I want to take the throne from him, so I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do to make that happen. And if I die, then fine. I was gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just like, oh shit. Like, when Thorkel goes to punch him, I was like, oh.
Yeah. The oh god, shoot. What they did really good, I think, that added to it being sudden but not feeling super sudden, is that they did a good job of, like, slowly showing Canute have a little bit more, like, authoritative to it, being a little bit more outspoken, specifically because of Thorfinn. And so I think, and they traveled for a few weeks together, at least, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was hard to tell, but you know that it was an extended period of time, because they don't go, they're walking on foot. Time takes a while to get places when they're doing that across countries.
Right.
And so we got to see little pieces of him slowly start to change, and then when he had this major trauma happen, ooh, so foggy.
Whatever.
There we go. When he had a major trauma happen, it just kind of, like, escalated it, and it hit its peak, and then he, like, completely shifted and snapped into this new person.
I'm just curious to see where the character goes from here. Like, how far can he take this new facet of his personality? To what lengths will he go to establish a utopia?
Who knows?
No, Dodger, behave.
That was another part about the ending that really surprised me. The end, like, the part
That
that
we read?
we got to.
Yeah.
Is that I also, when I was originally reading this part, thought, oh man, they've introduced a character who's Thorfinn's age.
Mhm.
Like, I bet that over time they're going to become, like, even though they're so different, they're going to become, like, good friends.
Yeah.
And then at the
They're
end, like,
besties.
Thorfinn walks in and Canute has murdered his kill, so to speak, and he's just like, oh.
They're
It's,
no
like,
longer.
so interesting.
I was gonna say they're no longer shippable, but I'm sure some people that made them more shippable.
Even more shippable.
Even more shippable. Oh, Thorfinn, poor Thorfinn. We keep going back just being like poor Thorfinn, but oh my god, poor Thorfinn.
Yeah.
I love him. I don't.
Me too.
He's just
Such a badass character.
so
Sweet
badass.
trash son. I love him so much.
He is pretty. He is a precious son. That is what,
Yeah.
when I think of him, I think of him as a very maternal instinct where I'm like, oh, Thorfinn, you poor baby. And then I feel really
No.
proud of him when he does really badass stuff. Like, you go, son. You go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thorfinn is one of my favorite characters in anything, I think. He's just such a fascinating character.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I love watching this like, they announced that this was getting an anime, like, last year or something like that.
God. My
Nothing,
heart.
for the most, I don't think, at least maybe I missed it, that anything has been announced since then. But I want this to be animated so badly, if only to see Thorfinn fight. Specifically the Thorfinn versus Thorkel battle. Because that will be so badass. I think one of my favorite scenes that is in specifically what we read is when they're fighting and Thorkel kicks and Thorfinn uses his leg to propel himself off so that he doesn't get the majority of the blow taken, and he just the next panel is he's just up in the air like
It's like, oh.
I feel like that was such a interesting moment to have in that fight that I wasn't expecting. And so to have it happen, and then he gets severely injured and has to pause for a moment to fight, and then that leads into Thorkel's backstory with Thor, is I thought was really interesting. And that was another part that I really liked, was how the mangaka does backstories and when to insert them, because they never feel weird or just like strangely input, or just there to be like, oh, here, you should care about this character because I'm gonna kill them off, or because they're actually a jerk and I need to make them somewhat redeemable. It's not like that at all. It was just, here's this backstory that you've been like, we've built up to, we've foreshadowed, it's been interesting, or like, this is a very logical moment for us to put this in there because we need the backstory now. So it felt very planned out. Like the mangaka has this idea in their head how they were going to write this out and play it out, and they stuck to that, and it was really good.
I like that Thorkel is kind of a vehicle for seeing where Thorfinn's at in his life at this point too, because so many times Thorkel like references Thor's eyes, right? And then like takes a moment to be like, you're missing something, to Thorfinn, and Thorfinn is so upset by that. I think because he wants to, even though his father's dead, he like wants to make him proud and do right by him, right?
Yeah.
And so for Thorkel to be like, you don't have his eyes, you're missing something.
Yeah.
I think it was such a cool, powerful moment, because Thorkel is very just, this is what I think, this is how I feel right now. And when I looked at your father, he made me feel like I was missing something. And so I can tell by looking at you that you are missing something right now.
Yeah.
And I just loved that.
I like how he also noticed that same attribute that Thorfinn is missing, how he saw it in Canute.
Yeah.
So it's just another thing that Canute has that Thorfinn doesn't.
Thorfinn is missing. Yeah.
Which, when you see them together at the start, you're like, oh, Thorfinn has all this stuff that Canute definitely doesn't have. Like, Canute has nothing. Like, when you see Canute, he's very unassuming. You don't think that he's worth anything. And then slowly it's revealed that, like, he has all this stuff that Thorfinn does not have, that you at the start are like, oh, Thorfinn has that.
You know what I also love? And this is just like a small thing, but I love that it would have been so easy for the mangaka to be like, all right, Canute's a man now, right? Like he's assumed this role.
Yeah.
And for that to be symbolized by him like cutting his hair, right? Because the whole time up to this point, everybody's been like, you look like a woman, you're so feminine, like, you don't look like a king. And I loved that he was like, no, this is who I am. And I loved that he didn't cut his hair, that he maintained that feminine look, because that's like who he is.
He didn't
made people respect him.
He didn't do the shonen girl character development by cutting hair. I'm a whole new character.
I'm a whole new person, Sakura.
No, but he has a badass scar now from Thorfinn trying to cut his face off.
Yeah.
Cut his face off. It's gone. It's all gone.
Where it go? So we learned, let's talk more about Askeladd. We learned a bunch about him in this section. Like, the last stuff, because I accidentally reread, like, 7 chapters before what we were supposed to reread, I got reminded of the part where we learned that Askeladd is, like, royalty in Wales.
Yeah.
And I remember when I read that, I was like, oh, shit, that's so crazy. And so they really expanded upon that in this chapter, or in this set of reading. And something that I really enjoy about how Askeladd is written is the fact that no matter how old he is, or how much battle he's done, or how much he's conquered, he still has that sore spot, like a weak spot about his mother and about his heritage from Wales. And the fact, like, we see that all the way up until he dies. Like, that is what causes his death, basically, is the fact that he still has this. And you would think, like,
he's willing to die to keep Wales safe.
Yeah, and so it's like, that loyalty in this character that you're not... this character that's been built up to not be a loyal character, that you think about, he's like, oh, he doesn't care about anybody or anything. He has no loyalty. It's been reiterated that he betrays sides that he's fighting for and stuff like that. And so when we see him gets so angry anytime his mom is mentioned, and Thorfinn even notes it a few times. And like he gets that same anger when he kills Jorn. And Thorfinn notes he's completely different right now, and I'm not like quite sure why. And it's because when he loses the most important things to him, that's when he gets so angry and he doesn't know how to control that anger really.
I thought, oh my god, that whole scene with Bjorn is so sad because he like needs to hear that they were friends before he dies.
Yeah.
Like he just keeps being like, I wanted to be your friend. Like I want us to be friends. And it's not until Askeladd is like, we were friends. Like you're my only friend in the whole world that he can pass on happily.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, Bjorn.
So sad. It was this whole section reminded me so much of, I'm not going to spoil Berserk, but the end of the golden age of Berserk. There's a lot that happens that the tone of it felt very similar, but in very different ways considering, but there was a lot of resemblance there for me for certain things that happened, which is why I was reminded of Berserk while I was reading it.
I think one of the biggest ways in which Vinland Saga and Berserk remind me of each other is that, much like Berserk, this section that we read is just the prologue of the manga.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same way when you're reading Berserk and you're like, oh my god, that was all the backstory to, like, lead up to the actual manga.
When I, was rereading...
So much happened.
When I was rereading it and I saw that the title of chapter 54 was End of Prologue, it had a flashback to, first time I was reading it when I was like, what the fuck? Prologue?
It was one hell of a prologue.
It's
I'll say that much.
God, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of who... We've talked about a lot of people.
Oh, we haven't talked about the king. Who is no longer
yeah, he
among
is
the living.
gross. He is
That guy was a
nasty.
dick.
They did real good at making him gross looking. My God.
I liked that we saw him seeming to be like a lazy, just sort of slovenly king, but they over and over again, specifically Askeladd, pointed out the ways in which he was still very cunning and obviously had been part of many battles and stuff. Like, I thought that was cool, that Askeladd kind of forced us to recognize him as a character, not as just like this kind of throwaway dude.
Yeah, he wasn't just like a weak old man that was just sitting there in the shadows like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was playing the Game of Thrones, so to speak. He was still trying.
He was actually playing the Game of Thrones.
He was, yeah.
Like normally, when you have like the advisor character, which that guy was also a dick.
Yeah.
Like normally the king in that position would be like a puppet for his advisors and just kind of keeping the throne warm and just conveying their agenda. Mm-hmm. But the king was definitely very clever, as is evidenced by him catching on to Askeladd's affinity for whales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, he's a very smart guy that is now dead. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Dude. That's what Askeladd felt too.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why he slipped his head off.
Oh my god.
Right off.
It's so satisfying when they have that whole like whisper conversation and then Askeladd is just like, you're a piece of shit.
And
like,
just
straight
up. And then he's
it.
like,
oh my god.
Yeah,
it's satisfying every time.
The part where Floki is trying to like ordering the men to go forward, and Askeladd's like, you don't want to do that because he's right here and I could kill him, and then he kills him anyway. He's like, oh, by the way, fuck you.
Yeah, I like how the king just realizes, oh shit, I fucked up. Mm-hmm. He's way too close.
He's like, oh, and the whole scene of the crown dropping, such good symbolism of it just falling, the crown falling. It was so good.
And I liked that Canute immediately put on the crown. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm king now, so...
It's like, la 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 la. Yeah, his character design, I really liked the king's character design a lot, because it made him very like unassuming, in that he was so detailed, like so old and like wrinkled and frail looking, that it made it that much more, when we started to learn that he is a character that we need to take seriously, it made it that much more impactful. We're like, oh, okay. We assumed, we had prejudice about this character because we've seen this character written a certain way so many times, and now it's not.
For sure. Going back to Askeladd's backstory, I loved that we saw him being a conniver from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Like, the second that he had a way to get close to the king, and just plotted for 2 years as a kid to murder the king, I was just like, Askeladd, damn.
Yeah. And
but again, it's another story about a kid who has nothing to lose in their eyes, right? Like, he's just like, I'm already a slave. My mom is slipping away. And the only thing that I can think to do to make this right is to murder you. So that's what I'm going to do.
To get revenge, basically. So it's another revenge story. It's a parallel to Thorfinn's, but it ended very differently. And so it's like, Askeladd got that satisfaction of killing his father, and Thorfinn didn't get the satisfaction of killing his father's killer. And so it's another parallel where you see that Askeladd, he got his goal, but he still, who did he turn into? He still turned into somebody that hated the person that he killed. Like, he hated his circumstances from that he was thrown into when he was younger, to the point where he loses control of his like family and home is threatened. And so it brings up why he would be like, yo, Thorfinn, what are you doing with your, like, what are you doing? Let's talk, we've already touched on it a bit, but let's talk more about art, and then we'll wrap up and give our final thoughts and ratings. Oh, art is so good.
The art is so good in this manga. I love it. The only criticism that I would ever have for this manga, I think, is that the sort of throwaway female characters all look the same. They all have the same exact face. But, like, so rarely is there a female character that isn't just, like, a slave, you know?
They all had, like, the same glossy eyes with long faces.
They all look kind of dead inside, I will say that gets rectified later, but for, like, this section that we've read, all of the women look identical, so...
Not exactly the same.
But, the main characters specifically are all so different and so unique. The way that, like we were saying before, the way that battles are drawn and all of the fighting is so clean and easy to understand what's going on. It's great.
The fighting is also really engaging because it's not the same paneling or fight styles over and over. Like, the characters are drawn in different ways. It's like you're watching a real fight. It's not just like a copy and pasted, like, this happened in the last fight, so we're going to do the same exact moves this fight. Like, every single fight scene is different, which made each one really fun to read because you didn't know what to expect or what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One thing that I don't think we've touched on are the backgrounds.
Yeah.
Considering, like, this was all told during the winter, so everything is covered in snow. There was a lot of detail in the backgrounds.
Yeah.
And even when there wasn't, everything felt, I guess, you would have a sense of spacing. Like, I felt like I knew where everything was, where characters were relative one to another. And also, I felt the mangaka handled perspective very well.
Yes, exactly. Perspective was really well done. And to like go off of what you're saying with the backgrounds, like, they had, with the snow, there was so many opportunities where they could have just done white background could have just happened, like nothing, and they took the time to put that detail in there, like you were saying, which was very, very refreshing to see because it just painted the atmosphere and dragged you in to the story.
Yeah.
Art is
Yeah.
amazing.
The art is
Good.
fantastic. I would say that it's been pretty consistent as well from the beginning. I would say the art,
Yeah.
like in some ways, probably gets better, but not in a way where I recognize it. But it's like really good from the get-go. So
It's not one of those that has a curve. You start
Yeah.
reading it and you're like, oh wow, it's good. I do have a question before we get final thoughts and ratings. Which death did you feel more feels for? Thor's or Askeladd's?
Askeladd's. Because Thor's I saw coming.
Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
you know that he's dead. Yeah.
I think I'm trying to reflect back on when I first read it. Probably Askeladd's. Thor's obviously, I think, is a better person and should have lived, but
Yeah.
but I think Askeladd's had more of an impact on me.
Yeah, I was remembering because when I did 12 Days of Anime back in like 2012, I included Thor's death as one of my moments because I just remember feeling so sad because he was this amazing character, and then to see him die by sacrificing himself, I was like, ah! And so then to parallel that with Askeladd's death was really interesting. That's the thing. The mangaka is really good at parallels, bringing up two characters that have different circumstances but are similar in certain ways too. All right, final thoughts and ratings. We can give pretty definitive ratings for this section since it's like the prologue and
It's like a
this
full
part
arc.
is finished. Yeah, the arc is done.
Just for reference, I went ahead and looked up the database, and both of you gave it 8s last time. So just keep that in mind.
God, this arc is
It's so good.
This arc is a 10 for me because
I
it's
know,
just
me too.
so good. It
Same.
has everything. It has well-written characters that are developed in really believable ways. It has art that's absolutely amazing, great gore that's fitting for the story, interesting setup and payoffs. Like, it's just amazing. Like, everything that I need to enjoy something and to stand out to me is in this.
Yeah, I would absolutely give it a 10 as well. Even like rereading all of this was like still so enjoyable. This is what, like, the 4th time I've read this. Like, Sam leaned over and was like, how many times have you read these chapters? And I was like, I think this is like my 4th, maybe more. Probably like 5th, I don't know. But it's engaging and interesting every single time. It's just so good, this whole first arc. So yeah, I would give it a 10 for sure.
So easy to lose yourself when you're reading it. Lou, baby Lou, sweet baby Lou.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's top 3, so it has to be a 10. I think it definitely. I don't feel like I'm giving it a score. I feel like that's just what it is. Like its art is amazing. The storytelling was really well handled. It's very unique in the medium of manga to see Vikings dueling it out and just observing that type of politics. Yeah, so it I think I couldn't possibly give it a lower score, and I don't see how that score could possibly drop either.
Yeah.
So it definitely gets a 10 for me.
Awesome. It gets 30 points. 30 out of 30 here on Manga Pod. It is so good. So yeah, that wraps up our discussion on Vinland Saga, unless you guys have anything else you would like to add for it. We good? Good? Awesome. That wraps up our discussion on this part that we read, the prologue, and I can't wait to read more. Someday soon, hopefully. That's what I want to read more. All right. I am going to read the description for Forgot what we're reading next week. All right. For the description the description for the manga that we're reading next week, and everybody in chat gets to guess. I'm interested to see how many people get this. Hang on, let me make sure I know what to bleep. Okay. A mysterious fleet equipped with super weapons, the Fleet of Fog, appears out of nowhere all over the world. Humanity is helpless against them and driven from the oceans. 17 years later, Gunzo Chihai and his friends fight against the blank of blank with the blank submarine blank blank, along with the ship's blank blank, a human-like personality named Iona, the ultimate SF naval adventure. I think that means science fiction. Or sunscreen.
Everybody's like,
It's kinda moe, but not really.
Everybody's like, what the fuck?
I'm trying to give hints. I mean, because come on.
It's on Crunchyroll. Random. Random's like, I'm just gonna go
Good
look.
job, man.
Good job,
Okay.
Random.
good job, Random. You
Yes,
got it.
Blue Steel. We are reading Blue Steel. Chapters, volumes 1 through 4, chapters 1 through 24 with Glenn, who is always a wonderful guest, and we love having him. So that is what we are reading.
Can't wait to talk about all of our ships.
Oh, so many, literally.
Hey.
Ship puns. Let's go ahead and wrap out our stuff. Shout out our stuff while we wrap up. That's what
Wrap that out.
Wrap it out. Yo, yo, yo. Aaron of Happily Aaron here. I do things on YouTube sometimes. All the previous manga pods are hosted on my channel. I also do anime reviews, anime first impressions. I did one of Bungo Stray Dogs a few weeks ago, and then I also recently did a unboxing video of my Bardock figure, who I love, and he's so pretty. And I also this week learned how to play Overwatch, kind of, so that'll be going up on my channel this week. I'm real bad, but real good.
Oh my gosh,
sometimes.
Aaron, we should play together.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so down. It's so much fun. I'm so bummed that the beta is closed already, but I'm excited when it comes out to just play it forever. So that'll be going up on my channel later this week, and if you want me on anywhere else, I'm Happily Aaron all across the everything.
Hi everybody, I'm Dodger. You might be watching this on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/dexterity bonus, but I also have a YouTube, youtube.com/pressheart2continue. I play visual novels and do a news show, and I've done some anime first impressions before, so I'd love it if you would check that out. And on all the social medias, I'm at dexbonus, DEXBONUS.
Dope. My name's Lou, and I'm from Lou Talks Anime. You can find me at youtube.com/Lou Talks Anime now, where I occasionally bullshit about anime. I'm writing a lot of scripts right now, so videos
Same! High five!
high five. So videos may be in production soon, I hope. I'm also a part of the Anime Association. It's an anime podcast. You can go check that out, youtube.com/Anime Association. And what else am I doing with my life? Where else can you find me? Twitter, AskFM, Instagram, all Lou Talks Anime. And yeah, that's basically all my stuff. Oh, most recent video on my channel, to prove that I do occasionally produce content, was I responded to the anime rap cipher challenge thing that's going around.
Yes.
So I dropped some hot fire on that.
I wrote
so
one
lit.
line for mine, and I'm like, I don't know where to go from here.
I told you, Aaron, I will
can't
help
wait
you
to
write
see
that.
your hot raps. I'm so excited.
Here, I'll just do
Bars.
this.
Just please don't tag me.
Oh, now I have to.
No!
No. Lou,
My
I'm gonna
raps will be ice cold.
commission you. Ice cold rap.
It will not
We got
be
this.
fire at all.
You ain't gonna be lit.
I'm not lit.
Not lit.
Not lit enough.
I am very unlit. I'm a smoke. I am smoke because I have been blown out because I was previously one time lit, maybe, and now I no longer am.
This metaphor is so good.
Oh, well, on that note, thank you all so much for watching. We are Manga Pod.
Mhm.
We are here every Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, on twitch.tv/dexteritybonus, as well as youtube.com/happily-airing. Next week, we will be reading Aperego Blue Steel, volumes 1 through 4, chapters 1 through 24, with special guest Glenn, and that is available on Crunchyroll if you would like to read that legally, just so you know. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Oh. Uh-oh. Bye. Bye. Oh.